Hi guys, I'm Melody of the Audio Twins, and welcome to the very first episode of the Endless Podcast. I am mainly going to discuss today why I believe the remake of the Poltergeist movie was nowhere near as good as the original. I'm going to have a few disclaimers right from the beginning. I will not be as nice as my twin Bianca and offer this movie a chance, and I will also say that I did like the movie. It was directed very well and flowed very nicely. It just did not live up to its predecessor. Now, I love horror movies, and I was actually very excited when I found out they were recreating an old classic. The first thing I didn't like about the remake was literally in the beginning. The remake did not start with the National Anthem. In the original movie, the movie started with the National Anthem playing super loud. Back in the day when this movie was created, the TV used to shut off around 11 p.m. every night, right after a band would play the National Anthem. This was super significant in the movie because the static on the TV was on an hour that it shouldn't be on. Not only was it on, but it was not like somebody accidentally sat or slept on the remote because they didn't exist back then. You had to turn a knob or press a button on the TV to control the volume, power, and the channels. This was such an important factor of the original movie, and I was disappointed when the movie didn't start out with the National Anthem. I remember as a kid when we would leave the old movie channel on all the time, and if we were eating in the kitchen and we heard the National Anthem, we knew Poltergeist would be about to start. And since I love horror movies, I watched it almost every single time I heard the National Anthem. I am just disappointed that they couldn't even incorporate it through a football game or something in the beginning of the movie. It was so big in the original movie, and they couldn't even find a small significant way to incorporate it. I do understand that technology is different now and the TV just doesn't shut off at a certain hour, but I wish they would have added it somehow. The next complaint I am going to bring up is the fact that they added a new character. In the original, there was a boy, a girl, and the two parents, and that was it. Now there's a boy, a girl, and a teenage daughter and the two parents. And of course, they had to make it a stereotypical teenage girl that complained about everything and she was on her phone 24/7. I do respect the fact of adding the new technology of our time to a movie where technology is important. I just don't appreciate the adding of a new character. That changes the original a lot. Another thing I did actually like about the movie was the fact that the toys looked creepier than the original. It added more scare factor, but I don't think they used them to their potential. This movie could have been a lot scarier, and I actually almost fell asleep. Of course, I did see it at the drive-in, and it was the second movie, so I was already struggling to stay awake, but the movie didn't help either. The last thing I didn't like about the movie was not so much the movie, but the people around it who supposedly love horror movies just as much as I do. I get into the horror movie rambles a lot with my friends, and I have a lot of conversations that go like this, and it annoys me greatly. Okay, so I love horror movies, and OMG, I love horror movies too. Oh, really? Cool. Anyway, I didn't think the new Poltergeist movie was that scary, and I didn't like it that much. Me too. I didn't like the tree or the static on the TV. But that was super important in the original movie, which was way better. There was an original? You can't just say that you like horror movies and not know that the new Poltergeist movie was a remake. That's like saying you didn't know that the new Ghostbusters movie coming out is a remake. It gets me very annoyed when people try to talk about something they have no clue about. I do act like that sometimes, like when I'm talking to my brother about anime, which I really have no knowledge on other than hearing other people's conversations. I fake my way through the whole conversation, more confused than when I started. I do have a small wave of happiness, though, when I get away with it, which is about 65% of the time. I'm not that good at it. But speaking of horror movies that really weren't that scary, that brings up the Paranormal Activity series. Being the horror movie lover I am, I actually watched the first 4 movies. You're probably wondering why I watched 4 movies if I didn't like any of them. Well, I have 2 reasons to answer your question. First reason is that I completed the definition of insanity, which is basically I did the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, but never receiving one. My second reason is, did I mention I love horror movies? Because I do. Anyway, one of the things I didn't like about the Paranormal Activity movies was that it was always the same story. Someone is taking or took a class on camera skills and they are carrying it around their house, annoying their significant other. And if they are taking a class or took a class, there should be no excuse for their super shaky camera work. Then they see something unusual happen and they think their house is haunted. So then they set up cameras all over the house trying to catch proof of the paranormal. Then someone on camera gets possessed or things move on their own and somehow they still don't believe they have enough proof of their house being haunted, when in reality everyone in the audience knows their house is haunted. After all this chaos has happened, somebody dies. Even if it is a minor character. If I remember correctly, somebody always died. But I could be wrong about that part, but the rest is pretty accurate. Plus, I did not like the style of the movie at all. The fact that you get only one point of view for each room throughout the entire movie made me want to tear down the cameras and turn it towards the hallway or the desk it was sitting on. And if you like that style, that is fine. This is my opinion, and I personally don't like that filming style. And what I really can't get over is that they filmed Insidious, which was a pretty decent movie. How can they film this mess of a series and then film something so good as Insidious? I can't wrap my head around it because Insidious was so scary and Paranormal Activity, not so much. They basically only had jump scares, and that is a cheap way to induce fear in someone. Another movie that really wasn't that scary was The Grudge. I feel like the real reason I didn't like this movie was because I secretly compared it to The Ring. What happened is I watched the Ring series when the second one was fairly new, and I loved the lore in the first movie and the horror in the second one. Anyways, I dressed as Samara for Halloween because I thought she looked very scary, and she does. But everyone thought I was the Grudge, except for two people. 2 people out of 4 streets on both sides. 2 people. I corrected almost everyone when they thought I was the Grudge. I would say I was Samara from The Ring. By the end of trick-or-treating, I gave up and let people think I was the Grudge. So I thought if everyone thought I was from a different movie, I might as well watch it. The Grudge is basically just a hair blob in the corner. You never see it attacking the person, just what their face looks like in the aftermath. All you get is one cameo of the scary hair blob in the corner that makes the sound. I guess I have seen way too many horror movies to think it was scary, but I was truly bored by the hair blob in the corner. I rambled on more about what I believe weren't good horror movies. And I knew I would ramble. That's why I called this the Endless Podcast. Well, I am going to put this episode to an end. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to the Audio Twin. Goodbye!